ancestral and unceded territories of the Halkomelem and Squamish-speaking peoples. I'm from Burnaby. My name is Aaron, and I will be moderating the discussion today on relevant resources for adults on the autistic spectrum. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to present Michelle Garcia Winner. Michelle Garcia Winner is the founder and CEO of Social Thinking and is a globally recognized thought leader, author, speaker, and social cognitive therapist. She is dedicated to helping people of all ages develop social emotional learning, including those with social learning differences. Michelle has created numerous evidence-based strategies, treatment frameworks, and curricula to help interventionalists develop social competencies in those that they support. And her work, which she continuously updates, demonstrates how social competencies impact people's broader lives, including their ability to foster relationships and their academic and career performance. And one final note, I did also want to mention that Michelle has handouts of her presentation. We will be distributing those as an attachment at a later time when the meeting is available for viewing after it's been recorded. So Michelle, go ahead. I'll leave it to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to work with your group. So as I started to work on the ideas of social thinking in the 1990s, prior to that, I in my graduate school experience, worked in a center for individuals with autism. At the time, autism was not considered a spectrum and had only, the more cognitively involved folks. And so as I started working with people, as I got into grad school and beyond, with social learning differences of all different diagnostic labels, I started thinking about how to really move into acknowledging their cognition and the many different abilities that they have, rather than what I was trained, which was a very behavioral approach, which just focused on how you behaved. And so I thought, well, I'm working with all these individuals who are quite bright, in fact, brighter than me in many ways. How can I help them use their core intelligence to start to think about the social world in a way that makes sense to them if it's not intuitive? So that's the basis of social thinking. My passion has always been about working with adolescents and adults all the way through mature adult years. I'm currently working with adults in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I find that so interesting. And I've always drawn towards the older student and adult because they can explain things to me to help me learn about their point of view or how they're interpreting information so that I can help fill in with information tied to social learning or social cognition. And I call it social thinking because social cognition is such a daunting term for so many, but really it's about thinking socially. And everyone I work with across whatever diagnosis they have one of the requisites of using social thinking materials is that you have solid to high level intelligence as well as solid expressive and receptive language abilities. So with that, I was asked to present or just talk about what are some of the materials available to adults with social learning differences. Our website is socialthinking.com. If you haven't been to it, there is a lot of free information for you. And I want to go over what's free. I'll also talk to you about what we're streaming and books that have a fee associated with them. But if you're just getting into understanding what social thinking is about, or you have specific questions about different aspects of our social emotional selves, because we are complicated as social emotional people. I'm sure you've noticed. In fact, everybody struggles in the social world at times. So here are some of the many free articles we have on our site, and these are ones that are particularly for the adult. Whether you're an adult social learner, I also focus a lot on helping to teach folks out there who are working or living with individuals with social learning differences. So one of the articles, what does the social world look like through the eyes of the social learner? I think one of the interesting things about perspective taking is that it's hard for everyone to take perspective, not just those with social learning differences. And sometimes the challenge of the individual with social learning differences is that the people they're working with cannot understand anything beyond their own perspective. And so other articles I've written about the expanded social thinking, social competency model. You'll see a little image over on the right there. And we started really thinking maybe about 10 years ago about thinking about social through the lens of the interpretation, the ability to socially attend, interpret, problem solve, respond. And that really helped us to define how anyone should be experiencing a social thinking treatment session. Is it's not about here's what you're doing and here's how you should be doing it instead. It's about observing. It's about attending to observe, to try to abstract and understand what's going on, to figure out what is it that I want to do, what kind of impression do I want to make. So that's the expanded social thinking competency model. I've certainly focused on, as I mentioned, working with those who are going into living independently or living independently. So article on 10 levels of living independently, where I just take abstract concepts, break them down, and try to give practical strategies. Social metacognition, our ability to think about one another's own social thinking, not only ours, but others. How do we imagine or think about what other people are doing? So using social emotional learning to engage hope. The more we're able to metacognitively understand different aspects of each other's perspective, emotions, desires, the better we can understand who we are and how we want people to perceive us, or how to make sense of difficult conversations. I'm interested in you, well, sort of. Social anxiety, face-to-face communication, and digital devices, and the art of saying hi. Respecting neurodiversity by helping social learners meeting their own personal goals. That it's so important, and it has always been important to us in our treatment philosophy, and me as I started this, and now my team members, that we're not there to tell you what you should work on. We're there to learn from you what's important to you, how you're experiencing the world, and how would you like to be experiencing, how would you like things to be a little bit different? Where can we fill in the gaps with information about how the social world works to help you better work in the world. Another article is, what is shared imagination and why is it so important to relationship development? The ability to imagine what others are imagining is central to relationship development. Making the connection between dynamic assessment and treatment to develop social emotional competencies. So I found that standardized testing of social abilities was quite limiting. So I started creating my own assessment tasks as I learned from my clients what patterns about what they weren't understanding. And so started creating a lot of ideas, not just on what is social, but how do we understand someone else's social experience, and what is that? How do we drive that right into relevant treatment? So if social thinking, so one of the things social thinking is definitely not, or should not be seen as, is a canned approach where, you know, you just sign up and it's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, because we don't really work that way. We're all about really trying to understand the individual. And not only how they function, but what's meaningful to them, and definitely their goals. So then over the years, I've defined ways to help my clients better understand the social world. So one of those is called social perspective taking. And I used to have 4 steps of perspective taking, and now I broke that down into 5 steps. So you take something abstract and you make it concrete. 10 truths and tips for making and keeping friends. Again, just taking something abstract, making it concrete. So we literally have written over 100 articles that are for free on the website. Feel free to just go onto our website and look at that article section to see what is important to you at whatever moment you are in your life, because what we value, what we want, how we see ourselves, how others see us, continually evolves. None of us are just one set way forever. 2 books that I've been in, that I've worked closely with my colleague Pam Crook. One is called Socially Curious, Curiously Social. I imagine some of you actually experience using. So one of the core treatment tools, which is turned into a product, is something called the Social Behavior Map. And some of you may have had this misused with you, where I built out what's the expectation, what's the situation, what's expected, what's unexpected, how do each of us, what are the behaviors, how are other people feeling, how are they reacting based on how they feel, how does the doer think and feel based on how people are treating them. And anyhow, this is a good example of a treatment tool that breaks down the abstract into something really concrete as a journey of exploring, understanding. I think you all know that whatever we consider neurotypical, we all still have a lot of social issues out there. So these tools have been adopted into the mainstream as well, because so many of them are just practical for all individuals. But this is a packet of frameworks that we developed over time that was part of our core treatment that we've now put out there so that you can just look individually at different frameworks. And on the back side of it, as it shows in the blue here on the left side, we help to explain what's this all about, what are you supposed to do with it, how does it link to other information. Under the category, so that is not a complete thing of our articles. That's just a few ideas that might be relevant to you at your developmental stage in your life, wherever you are in adulthood, because adulthood has all these different stages in it of awareness and desires and all of that. So I think it's fair to say from a social emotional perspective, all of us continue to learn our entire life, social emotional information about ourselves and about others and about being with others. It's not just something that's within the autism community that only they need to learn this. So another category is under online trainings on our website. We have a lot of free webinars, and we have what we call free AHA teaching moments. So some of our many free webinars that you might be interested in, if you're a young adult, we have a webinar on using our materials through the age of 22. And of course, these are roughly 22, because then the next one is using social learning materials to teach ages 19 to 80. And we put 19 because that's roughly the time that people are now out of high school and on to whatever, we're solidly calling you an adult by then. And then another webinar is demystifying executive functions. I imagine some of you have, if not all of you, have heard that term, but it's such an abstract concept. How do you make it super concrete? So breaking that down, building it out. And the free webinars are each about an hour long, and then they have a Q&A section that has been pre-recorded. That's part of them. Other free webinars, this all relates to my learning. I'm a speech pathologist. I didn't know anything about social anxiety until I started to realize that my students' challenges as they were learning about social thinking were not simply about not understanding social thinking. In fact, many of them had a pretty good grasp of this concept, but their social anxiety was really a barrier. So I started creating innovative ideas for helping them apply, being able to use their competencies to then be able to learn how to manage their anxiety. Understanding self-regulation, what does that term even mean? How does it relate to us? The social thinking, social competency model. that whole attend, interpret piece, just breaking that out. Perspective taking in the classroom for those of you who are still students out there. What is that process? Because it's not just the teacher and you as the student, but everybody together and all the different needs out there. And what I mean by needs is each individual in a class or a group or a work group, everybody has needs. We're needy, us humans. So free aha teaching moments were they're very much like webinars, except I just would say, hey, I just had this experience in the clinic. Let me just film an idea that I just had from working with some of my adults. And so parenting as executive functions evolve is one of them. Some of you are parents out there, and some of you are parents who have children with executive functions. So this would be an article you might be interested in. The other side of the friendship pyramid is something I evolved years and years ago to break down what is friends, because everybody will talk about this concept of friend, but what kind of friend are we? Different levels of friendship. And then we started looking at the pyramid of dislike. And so just going into, it's not all roses out there. Like, all of us struggle in relationships at time and actually actively dislike people. How do we deal with dislike to hatred? What does that mean? And just breaking that down and looking at it. Compelling social anxiety, impressions and perspectives. Just there's social anxiety where it's fair to say that at times I've had social anxiety getting into a new audience, even speaking to you today, a little bit of it, because I've just recovering from COVID and still have it, in the sense that I'm not feeling great. And it was like, oh, can I do this talk today? How will they think about me? So compelling social anxiety, impressions and perspectives, to just explore how can we break this down and think about it in concrete ways where we can better manage it. So streaming courses are courses which you can access for a fee. And due to COVID, we ended up having a lot of our work, which previously was never available online, now be available online. So we have a lot of courses we ended up filming. And here's just a few of them that you might be interested in. Zooming in on strategies for concrete literal learners. So I find that there's very different needs of those who are more literal in how they interpret the world, and how do we help them one step at a time versus those who are more naturally able to abstract, and how do we help them. Part one in this series is understanding, supporting the social emotional learning needs of what we call challenged social communicators. And those are folks who are very, very literal and really struggle with making any kind of abstract guess or understanding curriculum as it marches into those really abstract places. And part two is strategies for expanding social emotional learning in emerging social communicators. And those are individuals who are literally emerging in developing perspective taking, which is why we call them emerging. They also tend to be more literal, but they're starting to make sense of what it means to be able to make smart guesses about information that at first glance they tend to take literally. Another streaming course available is strategies for adults with subtle but significant social emotional learning differences or challenges. And what we call subtle but significant is we work with a lot of what we have also called described as nuance challenge. They look very typical in terms of their presentation. They don't appear quirky or awkward, but then they may not be swimming in the lane of social ease as easily as their peers. They may feel left out. They're not sure how to problem solve social situations. And so you can learn more about that. Another one is self-regulation and hope and social thinking 101. So this is a good place to start if you're not familiar with our work. Just what is social thinking? What are the basics? What's it have to do with us being able to regulate ourselves in the manner that we want? So self-regulation is not me managing myself because you tell me how I should do it. That's more of a behavioral aspect of learning that I chose, that I really didn't want to continue to be part of as I learned about working with folks who have solid to really strong intelligence. So self-regulation, hope, and social thinking 101 is a really nice starting place for getting grounded on our concepts. One I did more recently is what's alexithymia and how does it affect social emotional regulation and awareness. Alexithymia having to be with our internal understanding of emotional self or lack thereof. And so if you have been given this diagnosis or curious about it, this is a good place to get started. Flirting, dating, and maintaining relationships. How do you teach this? Because when I started in this field with high school students, from the very beginning, these were really big questions. And it's something that we're often in our culture so afraid of talking about. But I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? Let's talk about what is flirting? What are some stages? What are some steps to flirt? What do you have to be aware of? And all of that. So anyhow, some of you may be interested in that. Another streaming course, The Power of Emotions, Strategies to Fuel Self-Regulation, Learning, and Communication. That helping our students gain perspective on emotions is part one. Learning about shame, pride, and pathways towards social emotional self-regulation is part two. I certainly come from the place in my own experiences that the more I learn about a concept, the better I'm able to use those concepts in my own self-management. And that's certainly what I've shared with the folks that I've had the privilege of working with all of these years. While our clinical services are available to children as young as 4, I have always preferred working with adults. And certainly I started developing social thinking when I was working in a high school. So it's really fun to be able to do a talk that is really geared towards adults, as I'm doing now. So streaming courses, The Power of Emotions, Strategies to Fuel Self-Regulation Learning. Here's the next 2 parts: emotions, guide meaning making, and language to relate. Meaning making is what the brain is supposed to do. Facts help us gain information about the world, but the question is, how do we make meaning of what all these facts mean, and how does our language then help us to relate as we try to make meaning of the people that we're with as well. Part 4 is learning to manage one's anxieties while developing social competencies, or even if you're socially competent, how do you manage your anxiety? As we will all, different aspects of anxiety are just part of the human experience. So it's not that we're trying to help people get rid of anxieties, but instead learning to manage your anxiety, because having a goal where you never have anxiety is just not a realistic goal. As humans, we tend to be dealing with a lot. So anxiety is part of our life. How do we help us understand that and manage ourselves so that we feel good about, or at least okay about, the experiences we're having? And it's not that I don't want you to feel good, but I want to be realistic. I don't feel good about all my experiences, but feel at least competent in them. Streaming courses continuing, 5 critical life skills for tweens, teens, and young adults. Just some of the, after all these years of teaching, what are some of the 5 critical things that I thought was important for my students to really be aware of? What's a friend, and do I really need friends? These are questions that come directly from my experience with individuals that I work with. And some of them are really, in some ways, have been defiant at times about, I don't want a friend, I don't need friends, I'm fine by myself. And yet, often that person is dealing with a lot of mental health issues, that having someone to be able to share our ideas with, what is that all about? Because it's not either you have a friend or don't, that there's so many different levels of relationships, and we just largely simply just say, oh, you have friends or you don't. But what does that really mean? What's it mean to behave is another one. Just I like to explore these terms because we throw things out so easily at people, stop it, behave, or, what is all of that? Because behavior in one situation, what we do in one situation may be seen as really appropriate to that situation, and the exact same behavior in another situation may be seen as really inappropriate. For example, if I start lecturing my friends about social thinking as we're just hanging out and having dinner together, and the goal wasn't for them to learn about social thinking, all of a sudden I'm seen as inappropriate. But giving the exact same lecture at the time that people have asked me to do that is seen as appropriate. So it's not the behavior itself, but how do we make sense of the expectations of others in that process? More streaming courses, fostering the development of executive functions. Part 1, how do we get things done? Part 2, finding one's motivation to tackle many moving parts of any assignment. So having goals, steps, working through being able to check ourselves to see that we're able to accomplish actually what we're trying to accomplish. Just break it down, break it down, break it down is what my work is all about. So assessment is a topic that early in my career, I was just so frustrated with standardized tests. I didn't feel like they were sensitive to the individuals I was working with at all. If I'm going to be assessing someone, I need to be learning about who they are and not just how they do on a task that has been standardized across, tens of thousands of people. So part 1 is assessing social competencies with practical assessment tools and tasks. Part 2 is exploring socially based executive functions, tips for assessing different developmental ages. And some of you may be interested, if you're working with someone, if you have social learning differences and they keep giving you standardized tests to try to figure out your challenges, you might recommend that they watch this training to see that if they can learn how to dynamically relate to you. What that means is in the moment, just as we're talking, how is it that you're interpreting, problem solving, and responding. And I'm sure many of you also, you're not without the ability for social assessment. There's times where, all of us should be also informally kind of just making sense of the people that we're with. So this just gives you some ideas of making sense of all of that. So we have a lot of free information on our website. People are often kind of blown away by how much we offer for free, as it's always been my mission to make a difference in the world. It was never a goal of my life to start social thinking and start selling products related to it. But what happened once I started speaking was, as soon as I started speaking, people started asking for me to write a book and do other things that they could access at times when they were not with me. So that's how I ended up creating all these different talks and products. And so with that in mind, please take a little bit of time and spend some time on our website if you have not. And the main, buzz line that we're constantly trying to help people understand is teaching social competencies is more than teaching social skills. Social skills is something that we see as people focus on the behavior, what you are or aren't doing, each of us. But actually competencies is more about how we are interpreting and making sense of people in terms of our how they're responding, how we're responding, what we want for ourselves, what other people want for themselves. So with that being said, I will open this up to questions, and I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, if anyone has any questions for Michelle, you can either type them in the chat now or unmute yourself and use your microphone.
I'm going to just pop in. I know I'm giving a presentation in a few minutes, but I wanted to say thank you so much to Michelle for that amazing presentation. But I also wanted, just plugging in AID, we have so many of your books in our library. I'm going to talk about the library, but we have like 10 of your books in our library. So it's really cool to meet one of the authors that we, support in our library. So I just wanted to, do a little fangirl moment. So thanks.
Yeah, we're certainly happy to have Michelle here.
Michelle, you touched on this a little bit, but I've been on holiday, but I managed to attend some sessions of the Stanford Neurodiversity Summit that was recently took place. And I was struck over and over again by the emphasis on moving, like we're done with a disability model and we're absolutely moving and in fact living. And all of the self-advocates and advocates there, we're really talking about a strength-based model that's based on identifying and focusing on the goals of an individual, a particular person, and that no one, so you have in your presentation emphasized that as well, and everyone there seemed to be saying this does not imply not acquiring skills, or that it doesn't imply that we don't need tools, but in fact what they're looking for is tools that are meaningful to them and their experience, and they're looking to implement or acquire those without having to mask or repress what was being used in a lot of the talks is their authentic self.
Sure.
And I just want to emphasize that over and over again, because we really need to be thinking in those terms, that every individual we encounter has tons of strengths, and to that success is garnered from building from strength rather than failure or deficits, and that it is a two-way street, that the more tools we are able to acquire ourselves and within our community, the better we're able to, the more confident we'll feel in ourselves, but also the better able we are to communicate those who might not have had contact with our community, so that they better understand us and can accommodate and encourage us more effectively. So just wanted to lay that out there. And
yeah, I wanted to jump in and say, it's, you know, these are, in some ways they talk about them as new ideas, but they're not, in the sense that these are the ideas that I had as I started developing social thinking, that I'm working with intelligent people who have a relative weakness compared to their many strengths in an area that is of concern to them. Or if it's a child and they're not realizing it's a concern to them, then how do we start to help them make sense of their expectations for other people? It's never about, let's come in and tell you what we expect from you. It's really about understanding everybody's a thinker in this process, and how can we illuminate it. And then also, if you're familiar with our work, something I didn't talk about today is we talk about different learning levels in the social world and strategies for different types of social learners. So it's not necessarily your diagnosis, like autism. It's a spectrum. It's got a huge range of abilities and learning abilities and wants and needs and goals. And so in that sense, our work is quite complicated. And that's why it's, if you guys are, if you encounter somebody who's a social thinking therapist, we actually have sanctified very few, because it gets scary to us, because it's such, it's such involved work that we really can't say, oh, you represent, you're a social thinking therapist that we've approved. But that means that there's some people doing some really good work out there using our work, but there's also people who are not doing good work using our work, that they don't understand how to really learn from their client as part of the teaching process. You should never begin by deciding that you know what you're going to teach a client. You have to be able to engage them in dynamic ways to be able to understand what's meaningful to them. Even if they don't want to be there, there's something that's meaningful to them and what they want about that. So it's just really important, as you as adults with social learning differences know, that just because somebody says they're a social thinking therapist, it doesn't mean if they're not listening to you, understanding you, trying to understand how you are understanding the world and what you want and your frustrations and your delights, then I would not stay with them.
Building on what you've just said, Michelle, I'm going to read a question that's in the chat. As an adult, how does one assess one's social competencies? For instance, I tend to upset people with the things that I say sometimes, and I can't interpret facial expressions, so I am taken by surprise.
So I've actually, we do have a lot of free articles. We have articles about assessment. People are amazed by how much we give for free on our website. The other thing is the things that need to be paid for on our website. If you were to contact our office with financial need, we don't turn anybody down who has a genuine need in this area. So if the cost of whatever service we have available, like a book or a streaming, if that is something that you feel you're interested in as a person with social learning differences, you can contact our office and we'll coordinate getting that for you we don't want the financing to work against your being able to access things. So we really do try to be, we're a for-profit business with a nonprofit heart. And the only reason we're not a nonprofit is I don't want to have a board that tries to tell me what to do, because I work with my clients, my colleagues work with clients, and we are active learners in order to figure out what to teach.
That's good to know.
I think there's a second part to that question, Erin, if you want to read.
Yeah. So this person also wants to know if there are hands-on resources and community-based supports for people with ASD.
That's a really good question, and not one that I can easily, I don't know, the world's a big place. I just got back from speaking in Denmark. I give talks all over the world. I really can't attest to folks. We do have people, we have something called a clinical training where professionals are able to come spend some time with us for 3 days and really spend time with us, talking to them observing our sessions and getting to know them better. They might have that listed on their resume. It still doesn't mean that we've decided that they're competent. So, just because you have social learning differences doesn't mean you don't have your own sense of who it is who's helping you in a way that's meaningful to you. If someone tries to prescribe to you, now that I know what your diagnosis is and your IQ and all of that, so here's what we're going to do, that's where I start to go, yeah, I don't think it's that easy. We really need to learn about you, what you want, what you've experienced. A lot of my clients deal with massive anxiety or anger and frustration about how they have been experiencing the world. And so, it's not simply metacognitive strategies, it's understanding the mental health sides of this. And to that end, I've ended up giving talks to mental health people. I'm a speech pathologist, but there's just this area of social cognition and mental health. They absolutely overlap, but there isn't really a specialty area in that for many. And that's kind of an area that I see us unilaterally was like, I don't know, even though, my clients are going to counselors, but they're not getting this help depending on the counselor. So I started stepping into that place.
Also, we are in training some life coaches currently, and we'll launch that program towards the end of the year, maybe early January. And so it will be about helping individuals. It will be one-on-one helping individuals identify particular goals. And that could be one of them, community access and resources. And in which case we would work with that individual to find local resources and services. And just access to community engagement too. I want
to say on that point, as I work with individuals, there's different types of goals. There's like our big goal. I want to be happy. I want to have a partner. I want to have friends. But that's not the goal that we're working on, because we've got to break it down to different aspects of social, from our physical selves in terms of how we're standing in groups to our language and all of those different pieces and how we're making sense of that. So just appreciating, I just want people to appreciate that, to be, you know, continue to be a good, a careful consumer. And it's more people's actions about how they work with you than what they tell you about what they will do with you.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because life is a work in progress. And the idea is to, you know, try and achieve success in small incremental steps. I also wanted to ask you, how, I mean, you've changed your focus in that more stuff is online than would have been prior to COVID, but are there any other insights or changes that you've made going through this COVID experience about how you handle online or online sessions, and more importantly, how you distinguish between the need for in-person and online, and whether or not, what's important that it be in person?
That's a really good question. So one of the huge differences between face-to-face and online is our physicality. So language, okay, that's not going to be hugely different, but the physicality. So right now, all of us are turned towards the screen with our shoulders square on, but in face-to-face, it's constantly movement and adjusting and approaching. I've worked with a lot of folks who have some really great social thinking concepts, but they have a lot of anxiety. So they want to be part of the group, but they always stand like 1 foot back from where everyone is standing, and accidentally are conveying to the group that they're actually not comfortable being there. And so that's where pandemic forced us into online. There's absolutely benefits from it. But I think when it comes to the face-to-face, meeting a person in a physical place, if you're an online person and your whole life is online, and there are people who have very satisfactory lives living online, then online's fine, because you don't have to deal with that physicality. But think about, like, when you go into a store, you're standing in line, just how are people interpreting you? And so that's the physical, and that's where I still prefer, although I do a lot of sessions online with clients I picked up during COVID who don't live near me, who are adults. But I always have them go observe, notice, come back and report, so that they're forming a sense of what the face-to-face looks like. Because just having online, I think, lacks that whole awareness of our physical selves and how we move and adjust and manage our anxiety, because that creates far more anxiety for people, that face-to-face piece.
Any more questions for Michelle?
I have a final one. Oh, go, Francine, go ahead.
I just want to thank you so much for, I've heard you speak a few times and you have so much amazing information. And I'm a parent, I'm a psychotherapist, and I try to keep my two worlds separate and not do too much with my 20-year-old, which means that I'm looking for someone else, but that's always on hold. And each time I hear you, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much that could be someone amazing could do if he was open to it. And I don't even know where to begin. And I know you don't live in Vancouver, so maybe Joette would know, but how would we find out if, like, specifically like you're saying, I know there are people who've learned some of your curriculum, and they might not even be great, but it would be amazing to find someone who had. Are
you in touch with ACT in Vancouver?
I know them.
Deborah
Yeah.
Pugh. So Deborah Pugh is just someone who I've worked with a lot, and then became a friend of and socialized. But she's very familiar with our approach, and she maybe has more information about social thinking in the Vancouver area.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But it is complicated. And I think one of the great frustrations, and it's always been there for our learning community, is that you want somebody with a lot of experience, but actually all of us are just learners.
Mhm.
Like I can meet someone who reminds me of someone else, but that doesn't mean I treat them like this other person. I got to get to know them.
For sure.
And you know, so I think when people watch our sessions, so many goal-oriented sessions are like, okay, now we got to work on this. Now we got to work on this. And really it's called social thinking because I want to understand how you think. I want to understand how you're perceiving. I want to understand what you want. And I'm going to let you know, I'll give you feedback in terms of what you want and how it's being perceived, but in a way that we can all benefit from that, not in harsh or something's wrong, but let's, you know, think about this. If you're part of a social thinking session, one of the things you should be asked to do a lot is observe. Go observe in the grocery store, the coffee shop. It doesn't mean you have to have a friend you're sitting with to observe. The world is out there to be observed and to make sense of, and start to notice what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel uncomfortable. And then how do we start to bring those together in terms of your own understanding, actions and reactions based on what you want from others and what you're able to do for others. I have people who can tell me, yeah, it's totally, you know, like I'll do awkward things. If you're one of my clients, you'll know that I'll do really bizarre things at times. You know, I try to use a lot of humor, but sometimes, you know, and then getting my clients to go, no, that's not okay, you know, or why did you just do that? Or no, Michelle, come on. And it's great, right? Because who hasn't screwed up in the social world? Nobody, right? Like this isn't something like, oh, those of you who are diagnosed, you have the problems, the rest of us are fine. It's like, oh my God, we're a train wreck, all of us, you know, in terms of even in the best of relationships, there's problems. And so this is just something that I've tried to take the implicit and make it explicit for us to at least start having conversations about.
Thank you.
Any last minute questions?
I just wanted to ask you, Michelle, is there anything else in your work that you're particularly would like to do still, or that you like to do more of that you haven't yet tackled?
Okay, I'm going to have to pull up a flag on that one because I am at the tail end of COVID and not feeling very well.
Okay.
And so that way I'm not going to be very competent at answering that without stumbling a lot right now. I just got back from Denmark. I have to say it is really, really cool for me, and always has been, to travel around the world and to see how these same core concepts are part of humanity and they're not cultural. Culture, there are nuances in our social behavior based on culture, but the core ideas of relating and understanding and what we want from each other, if I'm in Asia or Europe or South America, it's the same core message and everybody relates to it. So we are more common than we are more alike than we are different. And so individuals in your community who feel like they're nothing but different, we're actually more alike than we're different. And trying to find those pathways of how we're alike in terms of our thinking and desires and what we want from each other. And then it's okay to be different, right? All of us are different. I'm unique, you're unique. So I think getting away from this idea that there's a right way and wrong way, and just what do you want at this time? What's the situation? How do you want to be perceived? How are people understanding you? How do you understand other people? But not thinking that you're now going to say, oh, now I can do that everywhere. We're constantly evolving, maturing. And that's the last thing I'll say is your 20-year-old self is not making sense of the world in the same way your 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old selves make sense of the world, that our maturity is not just physical, that we have a social, emotional maturity too. And so something that you struggled with, you might have said, I tried social thinking at 15 and it didn't work for me, but it might be might be something really relevant for you at 30, 35, 40. So if you don't find something's helpful, whatever treatment it is at a certain time, it may just mean it's not the right time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Michelle. I guess we'll move on to our next speaker now. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Joanna Nefs. Joanna is the CEO of Aid Canada, a national initiative bringing online resources to the autism and/or intellectual disability community. She has previously held roles at the United Nations Secretariat for the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and also as a lawyer specializing in assisting those with mental and intellectual disabilities in Toronto. And she also has a personal connection to this community. She is the sister of a person with an intellectual disability as well as autism. So go ahead, Joanna, we're happy to have you here.
Awesome. So I'm going to do a backwards kind of thing, and I'm going to start with questions. And the reason I'm going to do that is because there's so many questions. I didn't want to jump in when Michelle was talking. Michelle is so amazing and she knows so much. But there's some of those questions that you asked, and I was like, "Ooh, I can answer that. Aid does that." So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to start with some of the questions and just and give you a tour, I guess, of the Aid Canada site. So I'm going to start by sharing. I'll give you a background as this is coming up. Aid Canada is an initiative that was started in 2019. We are 100% funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada. So everything on our website is 100% free. Never have to pay for anything. And I'm going to give you a tour of the different parts of our website. And I thought it would be cool to kind of pull up some of the things that we've already been talking about today. So I'm going to start with our locate map. So if you go in, I encourage you to do this, and might even put it in the chat, www.aidcanada.ca. You can pull it up right now and you can look at it as I'm looking at it as, oh, you know what? It's not letting me come back to my Zoom. Hold on. Nope. As I share, I can no longer access the chat apparently. But if
I can
if you
put
want
in the chat for people.
I just
perfect. Wonderful. So if you pull up aidcanada.ca, one of the things that we've got, and this was mentioned a couple of times in the questions before, is this locate map. So this is a resource. It's got, I think, around 4,000 resources all across Canada of programs that are available for the autism and or intellectual disability in Canada. And I did a little pre-search. So you can search, it starts with the big Canada, but we are headquartered in Vancouver. So we have a lot of resources that are listed in Vancouver, but we also have resources across Canada. I did a little pre-search and I looked at, social thinking. So if you go onto our website and you pull up and you just type in the word social thinking into if I spell that right, F-T-H-I-N. I also am dyslexic, so sometimes typing is a challenge for me. But if you type social thinking into the site and you hit go, oops, I have to pick a province, and the question was about British Columbia. So we can find really easily, there's 6 resources in the Vancouver area that have social thinking in their program name. The really cool thing about our map is that all of these resources lead to an actual program. So if I were, for example, on Google and I just typed in social thinking Vancouver, who knows what I'd get? I might get a website that was talking about social thinking, or I might get a website that used to have a social thinking program and they no longer have that. But the really cool thing about the Aid Canada locate map is that all of these are linked to a program that is actually currently running right now. And so you don't have to click on the organization's website and fiddle around the website to try and figure out, do they actually have a program or not right now? All of the things, there are programs. And then when you click on the visit the website, for example, here's an organization that does a social thinking class. So you can go straight to their website and it takes you to the part of their website that talks about that program. The other really cool thing is it tells you immediately, like, who is this for? So this particular clinic, the program deals with or assists people who are in their teens and who are in childhood. But you can go to our website, you can go to our website and you can change that. I'm going to get out of social thinking. But you can change that to journey stage. So for example, I think a lot of people here are adults. So I did hear some people were looking for resources for their relatives, but let's talk about adults, seniors, or transition to adulthood. So if you're looking for programs, I don't know, guys, this is the scary part of the presentation, I guess, for me. Pick a topic that you think, oh, I might like to learn about a resource in British Columbia that has to do with X. Can you give me anything? And I'm sorry, I can't see the chat right now for some reason because I'm presenting.
Mental health.
I guess. Mental health. Okay. So we're going to type in topics, or we're going to go down here to mental health services. And then immediately, it'll zoom out for all of BC. Here are 31 resources in British Columbia that offer programs on mental health for adults and seniors and those journey stages that I clicked. So pretty cool. If you want, you can narrow that by type. So you can say, am I talking about assessments, clinics? Are we talking about, recreational opportunities? So it's a really cool resource. And kind of answer some of the questions that people were having before about how do I find resources in my area? Answer, go to the Canada site. We have over 4,000 resources across Canada that talk about all kinds of different topics and issues. So then the other thing that I would love to do, and again, this is the scary reverse way of doing a presentation, is opening it up to you guys and let me know and see if, let's test Aid Canada. Drum roll, please. Let me know what you are interested in knowing about, not just necessarily resources that are in the community, but Aid Canada has a whole bunch of resources that are books and webinars and articles. So I'd love to hear if you can type it or let me know, what's a topic that you're interested in learning about or something that you think, I wish there was more information on X. And let's test Aid Canada and see if we can find it for you. If not, I'm going to make up a really easy one and then it won't be scary at all.
Any questions at all for Joanna?
Oh, there's one there.
Are there any
autism support groups? Autism support groups, for sure. So we can, again, you can use the locate map to try and find autism support groups. So again, you might go with social opportunities, social and life skills, family support if you're talking about the larger ones. So you might check those. Let's do a test, and maybe I'll give me an easy pass. I'll put on all of them to see how many we've got. But if we're looking for autism support groups in British Columbia, we've got 249. So chances are, hopefully, we've got something in your area that you can look at. If you're in, let's see what's in Kelowna or Kamloops. So we've got 17 in Kamloops. So we've got a teen support center, early connections, navigation, youth mentorship. So if there's any of those programs that you're kind of looking for, these are not programs that are developed. Oh, Vancouver Island, Parksville. Okay, let me look there. So if there's any of these programs that you're looking for, let's see what we've got. You're getting harder on me. The smaller communities, the harder it is. All right, so I'm going to see what we've got just generally in Parksville. Let's see. So some things, not nothing. So we've got 10. We've got some resources in Nanaimo, some resources in Parksville. In Parksville, we've got this program. Not sure what. We can learn about it together. So it's a behavioral analysis program, if that's what you're interested in. Possibly not, but let's see. We've got physiotherapy, we've got work programs, BC, we've got vocational programs. So that's where we've got psychiatrists with autism experience. I just saw that's a tough one, and I'm gonna get to that. So if you want to take a look around the asset or the locate map, there's tons of resources and you can kind of play with it and see what you can find in your area. I will let you know how the items are collected on our locate map. So first, they're all items that are searched out by Aid Canada staff. So Aid Canada staff will search Google for you, look through directories, look at other people's websites and see what programs they're actually offering right now. And then they go through a screening process. So we ask questions like, is this something that is evidentially based? Is this something that is kind of standard practice in the industry? Is this new? Is there a potential risk of harm to the community or to the participants? And after our staff answer those questions, if there's any concern about if they don't pass the screening test for those questions, then it gets kicked up to the next level of scrutiny, which is our expert reviewers. And our expert reviewers will take a look at the program, kind of do some research about who's developing it and how much legitimacy they have. And it's only after they get that second level of screening pass that they gets onto the website. So I want to be clear, like none of these programs are necessarily things that Aid Canada is endorsing, but we think it's important for everybody to know what evidence-based and what programs are out there for individuals in our community. And it's important to us to make sure that people have the opportunity to go to a place where they can trust. So I'm sure all of you know that our community has been the victim of a lot of fraud in the past, of people selling crazy diets and strange new things that don't necessarily have any basis in evidence as far as whether or not they help people. So it's really our goal that people can look on this website and see, or look on our website and see, okay, this, at least someone who's in the know has looked at this program and knows that this program is not a complete crackpot. We're not talking about snake oil stuff. Of course, you have to do your own research and determine, as Michelle was saying, if this seems like a program that's right for you and it's a good fit for your needs and your desires. But that's what our goal is with the locate map.
Does your website also include post-secondary programs?
It does. I'm gonna go to a different part to talk about the post-secondary programs, because we've got some pretty cool stuff in a different section, and we've talked about the locate map. So I'm gonna go to the learn section now. And in this section, we have got a whole bunch of resources around post-secondary things. So same kind of deal. You can go to the learn section. So things that are in here are courses, free, everything's free online courses, webinars, videos, infographics, toolkits, articles, those kinds of things. Again, all searchable by journey stage. So for post-secondary, you might go transition to adulthood, seniors. And on this, you might go to education as your topic. And if you pull that up, we have a whole bunch of resources. Again, drum roll. So we've got 35 items. So one of them, this toolkit is pretty cool. It's all of the post-secondary education items that we could find. It was updated just in August of this year across Canada. So you can look at this and you can find, for example, in British Columbia, here are the resources that are available at Simon Fraser University. Like here are the programs that they have, Capilano, Douglas, etc. So you can go through and see what resources, what programs different universities have, and be easily connected to those resources. If you're looking more for funding, though, these are the programs that are available. But a lot of people have questions around post-secondary funding. So I know we have an infographic, and if you're interested, you can also search by article type. So you can say, oh, no, I want something really quick. I'm only interested in infographics. So if I pull that up, cross my fingers, it pops up what I think is happening. Yeah, so post-secondary education and disability funding across Canada. So you pull this up, and here is all of the different in BC here, and there's links to all these different programs. Here is the different funding that you can get anywhere in Canada, and how you can, and a link to those sites. So that's a really cool thing that we've got if you're looking for some quick information there. What else can I tell you? We also have these province-specific ones. So I think most of you guys are in BC, but you can see like elementary and secondary supports infographic for Newfoundland and Labrador. this one, let me pull it up. This is a list of some of the programs. So it's kind of the infographic version of that first toolkit I gave you. It was a long document. So if you want to just go straight to the different educational programs that are available, you can go click on that infographic. So lots of information as far as infographics and toolkits available for education and funding for sure. Also, I'm going to show you some of the cool resources that we've got in our library. I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's really cool. So if you go to Borrow and you go to Lending Library on the Aid Canada website, you are taken to this fantastic site. I absolutely love it. We have over 3,000 books, including audiobooks and ebooks, that are available for free. You can order them if they're not an audiobook or an ebook. You can order them in person, which means we will mail it to you anywhere in Canada for free with return postage paid. You just mail it back to us in 6 weeks, and you can borrow a book. And it's really cool, especially for people who maybe don't have great internet access, and like reading online is not their preferred method of reading. So I don't know, can we pull up something? What can we do? Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do books by autistic authors because it's one of my favorite searches. So you can search for books by autistic authors and you will come up with, how many have we got? I think we're over 234 different books by autistic authors that you can search on all kinds of different topics. Again, we will mail them to you anywhere, or some of them are available online if they're with their ebooks or audiobooks, and really cool service. Any questions about the library? Or is there anything you want me to try? I'll get my adrenaline up if you toss me a curveball and see if we can find something in the library that you're interested in learning about.
What about accommodations of autism in the workplace?
Workplace accommodations? Sure. I'm going to put workplace at first, and you know what, or how about, instead of this, I'll search it, because we already searched the keyword search. I'll do it this way. So you can do employment, for example, and then we're talking probably about adults. And then this is a cool feature of our library that's not on the other part of our site, is you can actually filter by audience. So is this book meant for educators, extended family members, parents, self-advocates? Is this meant for siblings? So you can do that if you want. You can also search, oh, I'm only interested in books that are online only. That's what I want to search for. I'm only interested in resources that are in person at the Richmond location. So if you come down to the PAFN Center in Richmond, that's where we have most of our library. We also have an in-person location in Edmonton at the Sneed Family Foundation. And I will talk to you about Materia Tech in a minute if you like. But let's go and find what we can find around employment resources. So yeah, we've got 58 books. We've got positive strategies. We've got resilience for preteens, and I think that's not what you were looking for. You were looking for like workplace accommodations. How about workplace? Drum roll. This is the time when it's like, oh, I don't know, I've never searched this before. I might get in trouble. Also, if I spelled things right, that would be better. Oh, good. We have 38 things. Small town's journey towards autism awareness and acceptance. Hired, getting and staying hired in the community. Self-advocacy handbook. Friendly environments. Very cool. Neurodiversity handbook. So lots of different resources, both for these are mostly geared towards like members of our community, but I think we also have some pretty cool resources on educating employers and educating the broader community, which I can talk to you about in our courses section. So let me go back to the Aid Canada. Oh, and while I've got you all here, here's my shameless plug. I mean, the whole thing is a shameless plug, but we are right now running the Aid Canada Arts Contest. So I don't know if you guys know, there's a conference on the 15th and 16th of November being put on by the Public Health Agency of Canada, and it's in support of developing the National Autism Strategy, which is something that they're interested in doing. And one of the things that they realized is that having a 2-day online conference is not something that's necessarily accessible for everyone in our community. And so they have commissioned Aid Canada, us, to try and get the thoughts and feelings of individuals with intellectual disabilities for whom a 2-day online conference is not something that's accessible. So one of the things that we're doing as part of this project, if you click on the National Autism Conference, is this Autism and Intellectual Disability Art Showcase. So please, you can win $250 by sharing your art if you're a person, an individual who is autistic and also has an intellectual disability. Just upload your art and fill out this form real quick, and then you can potentially win $250. And the information that we gather on all of the elements of this project is going to be shared with the people who are developing the National Autism Strategy. So it's a great way for people to share their thoughts and feelings, even if they can't participate in an online conference or wouldn't be comfortable writing a letter or something like that. So shameless plug, tell everyone you know, sign up for our contest. Important questions that we usually get is artists retain copyright and intellectual property of their work. So we ask you to give us permission to share it on our website for a limited amount of time. But it's not like we're taking the copyright or taking the rights to your artwork. You retain the rights of your artwork. So there you go. There's my shameless plug for our arts contest. Tell everyone. Okay, what were we going to talk about? We were going to talk about some of the courses that we've got. Which I'm going to pull up right now. And the way I was going to talk about continuing professional development. So one of the things that we know, and I'm sure everyone here knows, is that there's a lot of education that needs to happen for professionals who are interacting with our community. So we have developed free online courses for a few different people in the world when they're interacting with our community. So we've developed continuing professional development courses for police officers, for firefighters, for early childhood educators, for those who work in the corrections field, for those who work in the homeless sector. There's a bunch more, but they're all free, they're all online. And if you know of anybody who are in those fields who might be interested in sharing those, you can check them out. So you can go down here to courses under article types, and you hit go, and you get access to all of these fantastic courses. We also have some courses for self-advocate. So this was a course here about developing independent living independent living skills. This course is really cool. The Interceptive course that we just released last month. It was developed by a self-advocate from Australia named Wen Lawson, and was talking about understanding how to communicate what is going inside your body, which is something that's challenging for a lot of people. So it's a really cool course. I will go on and talk forever about the courses, but I don't want to. I want to hear what you guys want to learn about. One, because if we don't have it, I genuinely want to know so we can make it. And two, because I want to show off how many really cool things that we do have. So is there anything else that you guys are like, oh, I wish there was more stuff on? No? Because I'll give myself a really easy one if you don't give me something. Okay, I'm going to talk about burnout. It's one of the top topics that that people look at on our website. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with this concept of autistic burnout, but we've got a bunch of resources on that. So if you want to search everything, you're like, I don't care if it's a course, I don't care if it's a webinar, whatever it is, I want to find out information about burnout. You can just go to the search up at the top in the corner, burnout, and you can look for burnout. The only things that will not be in that search bar is the library. It's in a separate search system for reasons that make sense. But you can look at all of these resources. So we did an autistic burnout toolkit written by an autistic self-advocate. that talked about, how to recognize burnout and what it is and describing it. And then we did a follow-up toolkit around like specific prevention and recovery strategies, which we just released quite recently. We had a burnout webinar. We've got some videos developed by individuals from our community around building your social network, which touches on the concept of burnout. So yeah, if you're interested in learning about burnout, we've got a whole bunch of resources. Any other questions? I love this. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is our peer advice videos, which is one of the most popular things on our site. And I know we're getting close to the end of time, so I'm going to be good, but I want to tell you about the peer advice videos. So the peer advice videos are questions asked and answered by individuals from our community. So it depends what kind of advice you're looking for. You can ask for parenting advice. This is advice from parents, some of whom are self-advocates who are also parents, but most of whom are parents, but not necessarily self-advocates. And then you can also ask for life and social skills advice from self-advocates. So I'm going to click on that one, and it's a really cool thing. What we've got is you can just ask a question that you might have had in your mind. This was the way we came up with these questions. I will let you know is our self-advocate staff sat down and they thought, what are the questions that we want answered? What are the questions that we hear people in our community asking? And then we hired 12 self-advocates to all sit down and answer the questions, those questions in little clips. And it's because there's not one right answer to anything necessarily. You can look at different people's responses to this question. So what can I do when someone says, you don't look autistic? So you can hear Rebecca's response to that and her advice. You can hear Kaylee's or Jonathan's advice. And there's just quick little videos to give people advice and to hear advice from other self-advocates. I'm really excited about this one, and one of the reasons I'm plugging this is because next month we have another round of self-advocate peer advice videos coming out. So the first round was so popular. Oh yeah, disclosure, we've got that. I'll tell you about, we've got a toolkit on that. We've got some questions. If you want to see the peer advice video on disclosure, do you maybe want to watch one of them? I know we're running out of time though, so I won't watch one. I'm tempted, but you guys can go on. You can search the videos and see what different self-advocates have said about how and when to disclose and how you might want to do that. So we do have videos on that. So that I think is where I'm going to pause. I'm happy to answer more questions. You can probably tell I get pretty excited about our site because I just love all the things that we've done. And I'm so proud of the number of resources that we have that are developed by self-advocates. And I will let you know, here's another little background information. Whenever we have a resource that's developed for self-advocates, where the intended audience is a person who's a self-advocate, we do our very best to make sure that the author is someone who is a self-advocate. And always, even if it's a topic where we couldn't find a self-advocate author, always it's reviewed by a self-advocate before it goes onto our website. And if you're interested in learning, like just hearing from self-advocates, we actually have a tag. Let me pull one. So Understanding Your Body was a course that was developed by self-advocates. So if you go down here, you can just click on this self-advocate author or contributor, and it'll pull up if that's the information that you're most interested in. You can click on that keyword and it'll pull up other things with that same keyword. So 52 items in this topic that are all developed by self-advocates. So there you go. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is based on the information from someone in the chat. Is there any effort being made to bring these resources to the attention of people in the mental health profession, like psychiatrists and psychologists?
Yeah, for sure. So we do have webinars that we give out on a regular basis. And we also, I mean, just as far as our marketing strategy goes, whenever we release a new product, we look at the organizations that might be interested in that information. I'll give you a really good example, particularly on on working with psychiatrists and psychologists or looking at doctors. We recently did a really cool video series that was written by a couple of self-advocates about supporting how to connect better with your autistic patients. So it's a really quick, funny video written for doctors about the common things that the common bad experiences that autistic community members have when it comes to dealing with their doctors. So we did just release this as a way of trying to educate doctors on things like, hey, talk to me and not my support person, or like it's helpful for you to write down instructions for me, or have a sensory friendly waiting room, or those kinds of things. So those are a set of resources. So we also have the video, and we also have an article that is specifically designed for doctors to help improve relationships with their autistic patients. It's fun. We tried to keep it light because we figured that doctors will probably only watch the whole thing if they're amused. So we tried to keep it funny. Yeah, that's the video. But we have another cool thing if you're interested in mental health is we have, and you like videos, we have a video that we released on how medications work. So a lot of people are prescribed different medications for their mental health or for anxiety or whatever. And there's like, okay, well, my doctor told me to take this pill, but what does it actually do in my brain? So that's a cool video that we released earlier this year. So it's another, let's see, I'll look it up really quickly. How medications work video. So it's another, like, we try and keep the videos kind of more fun and light and bouncy. Some of our toolkits can get, around burnout or mental health challenges, they can get pretty dark. So if you're looking for more of the light end of things, check out the videos, more of the deep things.
Joanna, what about physical disabilities?
Yeah, we did. So one of the things that we do also is occasionally have research articles or research summaries on kind of the latest research on that has been presented in our community. So one of the things, I'm just going to try and find it because I think it was pretty recent. Low-grade inflammation. No, there's an article, so I'll just pull up this one for an example, but sometimes our staff go to these big conferences that talk about research that's happening in the autism world. And those, one, are conferences that you have to pay to get in, and two, are often presented in a way that is not accessible for the general public. So our staff will go to the conference, kind of summarize the most recent research, and then we always have practical steps of like, what could this research mean to me? So for example, this was research that was done on fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and chronic inflammation. So it kind of explains what the researchers found, but then it also says like, how can I use this in my everyday life, or what would be the applicability to me? So we always have this, what can I do with this information step? And it's things like you could, for example, in this one, you can do a pain diary, and you can take that information to your doctor so that you have a better starting point for your conversation with your doctor, because you know in advance what kind of things your doctor is going to ask for. So those are the kinds of things that we do around the more medical side. We try and summarize the latest research and just present it in a way that's super accessible to our community. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Okay. I see a smile, so I'm just going to go with it. Cool. All right. I will keep on talking forever if you let me, but if you need any other questions, I can actually put my email in the chat. You can reach me at jnefs@aidcanada.ca, and I'd be happy. Oh, one other thing. If you don't want to reach me personally, we have a chat. So if you go to the Aid Canada site and you're like, oh, there's too much here, and I just want someone to help me find resources, and I what you can do is fill out this form, but we also have this lovely live chat feature. So it's open 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. Atlantic time to 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can click on the live chat feature and there's an actual staff person, it's not a bot, who will help you find resources. So if you say, have another question afterwards, you're like, oh, I wish I had asked Joanna about, sensory processing differences. You can go on there if you don't want to search all the different parts of your website. And someone from our staff will say, oh, here are the resources that we've got on sensory processing differences and help point you in the right direction. So there you go.
Thank you.
And
It's
submit your
really
art.
helpful to know that all these resources exist in one place.
I'm so thrilled. I'm so grateful, just on a personal level. So you heard about my career. Like my whole career has been about getting people who can't access the regular systems access to the systems that are supposed to be built for them. Like all of these systems, the criminal justice system, the human rights system, all of these systems are supposed to be for everyone. And because of the way the systems are built, they're not accessible to everyone. And I've made basically my entire career about, no, let's really make it for everyone. Come on, guys. So like, I know we say everyone, but let's really make it for everyone. And I feel just incredibly blessed and so grateful that I get to build a website that really does make it for everyone. Okay, another shameless plug. If you have any, so for me, I said I was dyslexic. If you have any problems viewing the site, we have this really cool widget in the bottom corner. So you can change the way the site looks. You can make the text bigger or friendly. My favorite is this dyslexia friendly font, makes it so much easier for me to read things. You can change the colors. So if there's anything in the website that you're finding is just not visually there for you, you can use the little widget and change the look of our website so it's more accessible to you.
I've got two questions. One is similar to the one I asked Michelle. Your direction going forward at Aid Canada. Is there stuff that you're working on that you're particularly excited about? Things that you have an ambition to work on that you haven't yet covered? Gaps in what you're doing? So anything like that. And the second question is anything you would like to add about the National Autism Conference and who it's directed at and how we might want to participate?
Sure, yeah. As far as things coming up in the short term for Aid Canada, we always try and do a mix of things. So when I first started at Aid Canada, I said I want the site to be for everyone in the autism community. I don't want it to be for parents or for self-advocates or for service providers. I want everyone to love our site. And I had a lot of people saying, you can't do that. That's not a thing. You have to pick a team. And we have steadfastly not picked a team. So I'm really excited about all the resources that we've got that are written by self-advocates, but also I'm really excited about the resources that we've got that are really for parents and some resources for service providers. And I love how often we get the comments that parents who are also self-advocates are like, oh, finally, there's a place where both of my hats fit, and it's great. So things that are coming up right now, we're working on a series around including intellectual disability in how do I want to say, how to better access the thoughts and feelings of individuals with really high support needs in the intellectual disability community. So it's something that I'm super excited about, partially because my brother is a person with intellectual disability, and throughout the project, I've just got to think about him so many times to be he really does have so many thoughts and feelings that he could share through art, or he could share if you really took the time to talk with him and get to know him first. But so many policymakers and doctors and professionals don't have or don't want to take the time to really access the thoughts and feelings of people with intellectual disabilities. So we're working on some projects that are coming up, stay tuned, around improving the ways we access the thoughts and feelings of those individuals. So that's something I'm super excited about. And it's a good thing because we'll launch into the National Autism Conference. So like I said, we are funded by the Public Health Agency of Canada. Public Health Agency of Canada is launching this National Autism Conference. So you can sign up. It's completely free for everyone, happening the 15th and 16th of November. They've got a good lineup of speakers, and there's going to be, I'm not planning the whole conference, but there's going to be some engagement opportunities for people to talk about like what you think should be happening as far as a national autism strategy goes, like what elements should be included. And there's going to be some opportunities for Q&A with kind of thought leaders in Canada around various things whether it comes to, when it comes to housing, what are the things that we need to consider? Or when it comes to employment and education, what are the things we need to consider? So I think it'll be a really great opportunity for people, if you can make it, to go in, sign up for the National Autism Conference. And the link is on our website, and it's here. If you and I already plugged the art showcase, but I'll do it one more time. If you're a person who is not comfortable participating in the autism, the National Autism Conference, but you still want to contribute to the National Autism Strategy, one thing that we are doing is the Autism and ID Arts Showcase. But then another thing that you can do is there's an opportunity to just write a letter to the Public Health Agency of Canada and let them know what are the things that that you think are important. The cool thing about the Autism and ID Arts Showcase is that it's something that was commissioned, that the Public Health Agency of Canada commissioned us to do. And what we're going to do with it is write a report for them. So about what we found. So if you do enter the arts contest or arts showcase, it's guaranteed that your thoughts and feelings will be in front of the Public Health Agency of Canada, because they paid us to write the report. So it would be really silly of them not to read the report. So that's a really cool thing that people can do to get involved.
Joanna, we too at Square Peg are steadfastly resisting the idea of directing our focus to one particular sector. And because we recognize that there's overlap, and also we want people to be able to choose for themselves. And there were already too many silos of information as when we started this. So the idea that that people, as you can see, this meeting here is an example of things that might be of interest to service providers, but also to individuals themselves. That said, we are always looking for ASD individuals to take on more leadership roles within Square Peg, and we welcome anyone approaching us with that.
Sure, us too. I don't know if you're interested in, but we have this on our About, and if you look at our people, we publish our stats around how much of our community members or how many of our staff and our guest authors are actually autistic individuals or neurodiverse. And our last diversity audit, we had about 35% of the people who work for us are either autistic or otherwise neurodiverse, and then another 25% are immediate family members or caregivers. And then as far as like our staff, about half of our not including the contractors, about half of our staff are autistic individuals. So we're always looking for more people from our community to work for us. So please, if you're looking for a job, let me know.
Great.
Cool. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about something I obviously love very much. It's a really cool opportunity. I always geek out about the cool things. So thanks for letting me geek out. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your presentation, Joanna.